is actually in a. Okay, there you go.
You want to pull your chair over here a little bit?
Is that okay?
Yeah, oh, of course, sure.
Okay. Now, can you see me, Janet?
I cannot.
And it is live on Facebook as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Michelle, you want me to come up?
Well, John's in here, but we can see you fine. Yeah, come on up here real fast.
Can you come over and sit in case I can? Oh boy, I'm gonna see just how bad I look.
Here she goes. It's showing ours is on, but
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the August 12th, right? I've got it sharing, Greg,
Good, thank you.
to your story, so I assume it's sharing.
okay, did you get into the beer mix last night and leave it open?
Oh, I think we all know.
What?
I don't know. You want to try to log in again?
Okay.
We're going to try to log in again. Okay.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear
Okay,
you.
good.
No, I don't. I don't know. Let's see if I can't get you up. There's something on this.
Who are we missing? Travis and Robert?
Did you have a link where they said it's live at? It's broadcast on Janet had to go upstairs.
Just
I can call you back.
Okay,
Michelle, trying to get her on.
Robert?
I don't have. What's your phone?
has anybody heard from Travis?
He's here. He's on.
Oh, I can't see him on my screen. There he is. Okay.
All right.
Okay, if you you wouldn't mind, please bow your head for a historical prayer. This is from George Washington's prayer journal, a prayer for guidance. O eternal and everlasting God, increase my faith in the sweet promises of the gospel. Give me repentant and dead works. Pardon my wanderings and direct my thoughts unto thyself, the God of my salvation. Teach me how to live in thy fear, labor in thy service, and ever to run in the ways of thy commandments. Make me always watchful over my heart, that neither the terrors of conscience, nor the loathing of holy duties, the love of sin, nor an unwillingness to depart this life may cast me into a spiritual slumber. But daily, frame me more and more into the likeness of thy Son, Jesus Christ, that living in thy fear, dying in thy favor, I may, in thy appointment, attain the resurrection of the just, eternal life, blessed to my family, friends, and kindred. Amen.
Amen.
Now the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
States of America.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under
one
God,
nation,
indivisible,
under God,
liberty and justice for
indivisible,
all.
with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Item number 3 on meeting call to order. I'll ask the clerk to have the roll call.
Magistrate Thompson.
Here.
Blanton. Constantopoulos.
Here.
Davis.
Present.
Graham.
Present.
Elkins.
Present.
Thank you.
The judge is here. On the agenda, I would ask you to remove item number 9, review of the treasurer's report. That is not available. If you'd like to speak with Cheryl about that, she is here. But do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Daniel.
Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And that motion carries. Item number 6, consider approval of the minutes from the July 23rd, 2020 fiscal court meeting. Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. I do have a change that needs to be made. See here. Page 2, I believe. About 1, 2, 3, roughly 4 paragraphs down. Motion made by Magistrate Constantopoulos, seconded by Magistrate Elkins to approve Order 2020-83 to approve the final financial settlement contained within the February 2020 report as presented by County Treasurer Madden. I believe there was a friendly amendment to that probably needs to be noted in the minutes. And that, as amended, was here. Whereas the report appears to be in proper order and appropriate for approval and submission to the permanent records of the Clark Fiscal Court, and that would be an inserted whereas after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would be a sixth whereas. So just before the now, therefore it be ordered.
Okay, I'll get that from you. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion of the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Item number 7, presentation regarding the US 60 sewer extension project. Karen Leverance with the DGADD. I'm not sure if Stephanie Palmer is available or not, but Karen said she'd like to go ahead and give us an update on that. Are you available, Karen?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. I did speak with, so everybody, I don't know, Judge, did you send around the options page that Stephanie put together?
I just sent that to the committee. I haven't sent that to the full fiscal court. I figured I'd let you fill them in on it.
Okay, great. So Stephanie and Brian and Duke and I got together and we looked at 3 potential options for how to move this project forward. The first option would be that the Winchester utility would take over both water and sanitary service in all of those neighborhoods up along US 60, but that would require the utility to accept those service areas, and it would also require Kentucky American to relinquish those customers to and the infrastructure to the utility. So there'd be quite a bit of negotiation required, but that would allow you to pursue a CDBG, which is all grant funding, ARC, which is all grant funding, and SRF, which is a low interest loan. The second option is to not take over all of the collection systems in the neighborhoods themselves, but build lines out to each neighborhood and have a similar setup to this Tree Haven subdivision where there's a flow meter. So all of the collection would go to this one point, at which point the utility would receive, Winchester utility would receive it, and they would just get a single bill to be divided up amongst all of the households within each neighborhood. Unfortunately, that disqualifies the CDBG funding because the CDBG has to have direct customer billing. And so they would consider that only for connections and not individual households benefiting. You would still be eligible for ARC funding and SRF, which is the low interest loan. And it would allow for those package plants that are serving those neighborhoods to be decommissioned. Which is a state objective that Division Water is trying to eliminate as many of those as possible. And then the third option is a privilege fee setup sponsored by an entity. It could be public, private, or a joint venture of some kind. And that would make the entity or group of entities responsible for any capital improvements, and then they would pay back as new customers connect to the system as development occurs. So initially, we recommended to go with the first option is the Winchester utility would accept all of the service area, all of the infrastructure, but that would require the negotiation with Kentucky American, and Kentucky American would have to relinquish those customers. I did talk to Linda Bridwell, which if you aren't familiar with her, she worked for Kentucky American for a really long time. And now she works for the Kentucky Infrastructure Authority. And I spoke with her this week, and she said she did not think it was very likely that Kentucky American would want to relinquish a couple hundred customers. She said they might play nice and be willing to sit down and discuss it, but ultimately she did not think it was likely for that to happen. So she didn't discourage us from, at least reaching out and asking, but she was not very optimistic. So the next likely option is option 2, where you have a similar setup at each of those neighborhoods, like Tree Haven, where you have the single connection point with the flow meter. And that would still allow you to decommission those package plants, and that would also make you eligible for some principal forgiveness on the SRF loans, because you're decommissioning so many package plants. I do think it would make it a very competitive project, especially for ARC. And even though it would be a single point billing, the SRF program is a little bit more flexible in terms of income surveys. And I think they would still be willing to work with us to prove that you would be eligible for the lowest interest rate, which right now is 0.25%. So with some additional principal forgiveness, that makes a low interest loan, depending on how much the project cost is, that makes it, it's about the best conditions you could hope for a loan. So my personal recommendation is to pursue option 2, because I think I agree with Linda that I think negotiating with Kentucky American at this point is probably a non-starter.
Judge, this is sorry.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention, I guess, in regards to, that's okay. I just wanted to mention in regards to option 2, the one, I guess, concern there is that we will have to convince those neighborhoods to pay the additional fee for WMU, because right now they're just upkeeping those package plants. And so I know when talking with Duke, he had said the one that's a similar setup of that, during high flow events, whether we get a lot of rain, that there is larger fees associated with that. So that is something else we need to work through. But I do agree with Karen that I think it'll be difficult to convince Kentucky American to give up those customers.
Now, wasn't there a thought at some point in time, and Stephanie, you may be more familiar with this, even though I don't think you were part of the engineering team that put together the project from about 5 years ago, but at some point in time, wasn't there a thought that in order to get those package plants off, so to speak, that Kentucky American might be willing to trade customers? Has something changed on that, or was it just at one point in time, there was a plan that said Kentucky American would actually invest money into it?
I know that they had looked at it. I believe the report was done by another engineer, and it was commissioned, Karen, am I right, through East Kentucky Power was sort of heading it up. Is that?
Yeah, I want to say that the city was going to contribute some, the East Kentucky Power and Kentucky American. And then I think what happened was either East Kentucky Power or Kentucky American pulled out first, and then the other one just decided to rehab their package plant anyways, and so they ended up pulling out as well.
Yeah, I think you're right, Karen. I think Kentucky American, once they got into it, they pulled out first, and then East Kentucky Power did. I know Duke had said that they did invest in their package plant relatively recently. Let me see, Brian, I guess the other issue is that if we try to do this, that WMU really had wanted the water to offset some of the cost of just the sewer. So I'm not sure exactly what the process was as far as going back to the previous study, but
well, I guess my thought, Stephanie, is there in any of these proposals, I guess especially number 2, if that's the one that's being recommended now, is there a windfall for Kentucky American? I mean, are they basically getting a benefit without contributing anything, for lack of a better?
I mean,
I think they only operate one of the package plants, correct? And the rest of them are all like homeowners association owned or neighborhood association owned or something like that. So to a degree, there would be some minor negotiating still with Kentucky American, because they would have to agree to get rid of that package plant and then pay the sewer fee, which would probably just go as another line item on their water bill for those that particular set of customers. But in terms of maintenance and upkeep for a company like Kentucky American, I don't necessarily think they would consider it a windfall or anything like that.
Well, I was thinking more from Clark County's standpoint. We don't have quite the wallet Kentucky American does.
Right.
Or to try to get them invested somehow with additional money. And I'm sure the package plant is a little bit of a pain. Those are sort of, they're more of like environmental concerns, I think, than rather
Right.
Maintenance issues, because honestly, they're set up to just sort of self-function, but they just don't do as good of a job of providing water quality as a traditional, treatment plant would. So that's why water sort of prioritize getting those out.
Is that Magistrate Davis I'm hearing?
Yes, Judge. I was wondering if either Stephanie or Karen could state for everybody the package plants that would be decommissioned and put out of service in this proposal.
Karen, do you
Yeah.
if not, I can pull up the
Let's see. I have Verna Hills, Strode's Creek, maybe, and Rockwell Village or Yorktown. Do those sound right?
well, so the ones that we're mainly talking about are the Tree Haven Mobile Home Park. The Tree Haven currently owns their existing sanitary sewer collection system. And this is the one that WMU already has set up sort of on the system that we're talking about, that Tree Haven pays WMU per flow rate through their system. And then that is pumped to the Strode's Creek wastewater treatment plant and treated there. Tree Haven does have water service by Kentucky American. So that's sort of, when talking with Duke, what they were like, what they thought that WMU and the city would be willing to look at doing. It's the other three, I believe. So the next one is the Rockwell Village Mobile Home Park. This one is the one that has a sanitary sewer service that is through Kentucky American Water. They own the package treatment plant here. And then Kentucky American also has the water service. The next one is Yorktown. Yorktown currently owns their own sanitary sewer collection system and wastewater treatment plant or package plant. It's not a full plant. And their water service is by Kentucky American. And then finally, Verna Hills subdivision. They own their existing sanitary sewer collection system and their package treatment plant. And once again, their water service is through Kentucky American currently. So really, we're talking about three: Rockwell, Yorktown, and Verna Hills, with Rockwell being the one that the sanitary system is currently owned by Kentucky American. The other two sanitary systems are privately owned.
But this plan, should the funding come through or the forgivable loan come through, it could reach, the scope could reach as far as Verna Hills and Yorktown. And I ask that because I know they're both not only in my district, they're almost in Fayette County. So.
Right. And it could just be that, we fully anticipate this being a phased project. So it may just be that option 2 is further broken down into more manageable phases. There's nothing preventing you from pursuing multiple ARC grants. So if you break down option 2 into, phase 1, 2, and 3, you could apply for ARC grant for phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. As you complete each phase, you could just keep applying for more grant funding as well.
Yeah, I think that's probably something, if we can get the committee together with a couple of you guys to talk about, maybe we can work on the strategy of the potential piecemeal process just to see how much it costs.
Sure.
Along the way.
Magistrate Davis, do you have any notion if they're having any problems with their current package treatment plants, or if it's something that they would look to do? Because I guess that was our concern, is that it's likely going to be some sort of investment going forward for them once the infrastructure is in place to pay for the sewer fees. And if they're not currently having to pay for that might be a hurdle that we have to overcome.
So I know that both of those, both Verna and Yorktown, they're both those developments were done in the 1970s. Vernon Hills maybe early to mid 70s. I think Yorktown maybe went in the late 70s. As you said, both of them have package plants. Both of them are administered by the homeowners associations, and they have a fee structure, a set fee that they charge each individual homeowners. Both of them, I think and they may use the same contractor. I think each of them use a contractor to manage the package plant. Historically, have there been problems? I think yes. Now, I'm not aware of any problems they have now. I mean, both those plants obviously are very old. They've had to do maintenance and repairs and upkeep, and you never know what's those plants. You never know what's going to come up next. And I know with Yorktown, the most recent issue that I've heard of is some of the there was a stormwater issue over there where after a lot of really strong rain, I think they get some overflow into the lagoon, or possible water into the lagoon. I don't know if that's been rectified or not, but it's a lot of it's just constant maintenance. And I think we'd have to pull in both homeowners associations and their boards and see what kind of I would think there'd be a lot of appetite to finally retire those and get people on sanitary sewer. I mean, as I said, both those subdivisions are almost on the Fayette County line, or very close, and they've sort of been stranded for years, and to a certain extent, at least with sewer goes. So I would have to think there'd be a lot of appetite for being able to finally decommission those plants if the funding was there.
Sure.
We thought we could reach out that far.
Yeah.
We've looked at like some very preliminary options back really for WMU as part of the facilities plan for like the future development of that. And it did include a combination of gravity and force main to the Vernon Hills and Yorktown areas. So I do think it's possible, and like Karen said, to help us get the funding, that if it's part of the project, then we probably can't do the CBDG grants because they won't consider it. Basically, in terms of WMUs, each of those homeowners associations would be one customer. And so my understanding is CBG won't consider that since it's not individual
Households, right?
homeowners. Right, Karen?
Yes, that's correct.
And I guess there's no way to work with the homeowners associations to break those out into separate bills.
I mean, if those neighborhoods that that are homeowner association that owns the package plant, if they would want it, I guess. And really, I guess this is where WMU would need to accept those customers without the water. That's the big thing, is that when you're replacing the collection system as well to take care of the storm, the I&I, or depending on what state the collection system's in. Stephanie probably knows more, or Magistrate Davis probably knows more. That can run your costs up quite a bit, I think. So that adds a lot of costs as far as operation and maintenance for the utility.
Okay.
Talking with WMU, I guess if we have more than one customer, they were worried about maintaining the entire collection system, the state of that collection system. And I guess especially the one like at Tree Haven, there's a lot of, like Karen said, inflow and infiltration into the system. So the flows get very high, and then they did not necessarily want to take on that responsibility without the benefit of also providing those customers water, because they make money, having both the water and the sewer can fully benefit, makes it more profitable and economically feasible, really, to be able to do that.
Any other questions for Karen or Stephanie?
Karen and Stephanie, one quick question. So with this phase 2, is this also bringing the sewer main basically over to that side of US 60 where it's closer? If there's any other potential new development that it'll be able to be tied into, and so it kind of serves two purposes there?
I think so, because the bore under the interstate, is that right? Is
Yes.
already there.
Already
We
there.
Yes.
down on the cost quite a bit. That was some smart future planning on whoever chose to made the decision to go through with that. So, but that's my understanding that yes, that there's a secondary benefit to bringing the line over there, sewer main.
If I'm correct, I think there may have been a CBD grant at that time that actually paid for the bore. The bore has been completed, but there's not been any actual infrastructure that's been run, correct?
That's my understanding, is there's not actually anything, the bore isn't loaded, it's just in place. It's sort of the way that I had understood it. And we haven't gotten into detailed options yet of looking at, what the actual alignments would be and how far we take it. We're just trying to get a general direction going forward first. But
do you need, I guess,
part of the-
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So I guess the question that I have is you're wanting direction on what option to look at, and then based on which option that this court deems is necessary to go, then we will get a breakdown of cost for that option, but then it would also be broken down in like a phase 1 cost, a phase 2 cost, phase 3 cost. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's correct. Our intent, following this direction of sort of like the general option that the court directs, we would like to go ahead and do the preliminary engineering report based on that selection of that general option. And through that, we will have costs and break it down in phases once we get to the preliminary engineering report that will sort of guide the project going forward. And they'll be presented sub options based under this more general direction. As we were trying to get started, we were just sort of felt like we were being pulled in multiple directions and didn't want to like go down a path that, with Kentucky, if it would be great if Kentucky American Water wanted to give the water to WMU. Like, that's like the best thing for the community, but obviously Kentucky American probably is not willing to do that. So we just wanted to get general direction before we got more into the details of phasing.
And I will say, I want to say one thing before we can even pursue funding opportunities and applications, you will need to have your engineering contract executed. So I understand that part of executing that is kind of identifying which options we want to move forward with. But once we've done that, then the court will need to execute that engineering contract, sooner rather than later, because there's some federal guidelines that has to be done. That's one of the very first things that has to be done.
Well,
Just so
that's
that's
reasonable.
in everybody's forefront of their mind.
I had a question.
Go ahead, Robert.
Daniel asked the question if this included the sewer line along US 60, and I think Karen said that was a secondary benefit. It was my understanding that was the primary goal of this, was to get sewer over to US 60. And did I miss something, or did I misunderstand what Karen said?
Oh, I thought I was referencing the additional development of the area as the secondary benefit. The primary benefit, yes, would be getting the sewer line out along US 60 to take these package plants offline. But a secondary benefit would be the ability for those undeveloped areas to then, is there not a private developer that has some interest in building up some of those areas?
Well, I thought the
That's
secondary
across US 60 up towards Lexington, yes.
Okay.
Well, I thought the secondary benefit was getting the package plants offline, and the primary goal of the magistrates was to have a sewer line in that a developer could tap onto. So I think it's the same difference.
Yes,
I think
I agree.
Well, I think we have to present it that way in order to get the funding. Like, we're not going to be, Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, that to be able to get the funding, they're not going to likely fund new just sewer line.
Private development, we need to show that there's a public environmental benefit first, and then the silver lining is that, oh, now it can be developed as well.
One last question.
Sure.
So the from what I'm understanding is the recommendation from you, Stephanie and Karen and WMU is for the court to select option 2. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my recommendation.
Judge, do you need that in a formal motion?
If you all want to take it up today, or we can do it as a committee, or we can come back and vote on it later. If you want to do it now, you can, certainly.
Well, I make a motion that we accept the recommendation of WMU, Stephanie, and Karen, and go with option 2.
Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion purposes.
Okay. Would you like to discuss, Magistrate Elkins?
Yeah, I mean, I just think although I think it's probably the right motion, maybe we should look at it or have the committee to look at it before we take it up as a court and maybe postpone this vote, just my thought, until after the committee has looked at it a little further. Magistrate Constantopoulos, what are your thoughts on that?
I'd be more than happy to it if you would like us to make an official recommendation. I know we had seen the information, but I'd be more than happy to make a formal recommendation if that makes everyone feel comfortable.
So, Daniel and Chris, would you all be available, within the next, week or so to meet with Stephanie and Karen and flush out the proposals, and maybe Duke from WMU? You think we could make that happen?
Sure.
Yeah, and maybe we go ahead to Kentucky American, I believe it is, and at least ask them if they would be willing to give up those customers, and that way we could maybe consider option 1.
Well, I think option 1 would be the best one if it were possible.
Correct.
What we're trying to nail down is whether or not it's even feasible.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't hurt to at least go ahead and ask and have them tell us no, rather than assume they're going to tell us no. Just my thoughts.
Sure, that gives you more evidence to support the second option, to say, you exhausted the first option. They said no. Now you can back up why you moved on to option 2. I think that's reasonable.
Okay.
Judge, I have some discussion when you're ready.
Sure, go ahead, Travis.
2 things. First of all, I agree with Magistrate Elkins. I think that we should put this off to the next meeting and actually prepare an order to go in the way that the committee feels. And I would personally like to see any documentation that's available to back all this up and look at it and read it before I vote on it. And second, I would just point out that we have some property owners on US 60 who have already put in sanitary sewer to their property under a privilege fee agreement. And I don't know how fair it is to jump over them and go this route. So I just point that out.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, Travis. I spoke with your dad about that, Troy, and I think a couple of the Nortons have done some developments out in that area. I'm not sure. I believe at the end goal of this, and Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong, if there were future development down the line privately, they would still have to either contribute or be part of a privilege fee as well, right?
I mean, the way that we had sort of set it up was that, like, there were the 3 options that were presented. The first one was WMU is able to take control of the water and the sewer, and they own sort of all the systems. The second one was that we extend the sewers, and sort of the third one was a privilege fee option. That's not saying that we couldn't alter that and, private customers require some sort of privilege fee with even the second option. That's something that we would just need direction on how the county would like it wants to proceed and set that up.
I do agree in theory that anyone, and that's why I was asking about Kentucky American getting a kind of a windfall if public funds or loan funds or anything else are used. I would like them to have a little skin in the game if they're going to get a benefit, and I would like that to go to any private developer as well. I mean, obviously they're going to have to invest in something, I think. So I tend to agree with the notion that we sit down as a committee and talk it out a little bit and look at the options before we take an action as well.
Because ideally you would get, you know, the SRF or the ARC funds would pay for the majority of that infrastructure that goes in. But there may be places where you'd want to extend the line to that we can't prove is part of, you know, a benefit for existing customers and environmental impacts. So there may be, you know, private funding that would have to be done through a privilege fee to extend to those newly developed areas.
Okay. So Daniel, do you still want a vote on this motion, or would you consider withdrawing it?
Well, I think you want to make I'm fine with making a motion to postpone it. Do you want to postpone it to the next meeting, or what's the
If
pleasure?
you think we can all get together and meet and make a recommendation by then, that's fine with me.
Magistrate Davis?
Fine.
He said he could earlier.
I know that Duke is out of the office most of next week, just from working with him, trying to schedule another meeting. I know he said he had a lot of availability the week of the 24th. So if we want him involved, I don't know how, he essentially told me he wasn't going to be available the week of the 17th. So.
Okay, I understand. Daniel, why don't you go ahead and withdraw the motion, and I can just put it on the agenda if everything works out right. I mean, it doesn't have to be this exact motion.
I'll withdraw that.
Okay. Any further questions for the presenters? All right, thank you guys so much for coming. We appreciate the work you've done so far and look forward to talking with you in the next couple of weeks.
Sure. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I've noticed that we've already had some people use the chat feature. That's for public comment. I think there's some comments regarding the planning and zoning issue later on if you all are interested in reading that. Moving on, we moved to item 9. Go ahead.
I had a couple of people that emailed me and asked me to read their public comment during the public comment section. Is that okay? I know we've done that in the past.
If you, what's pertaining to it? Is it pertaining to the agenda?
Yes,
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Before we go there, can I make a comment, just an observation? If I
Sure.
understand correctly, if we're talking about the zoning change, we have to go on the record. If the judge opens it up for additional comment, we have to open it up for everybody and have a new hearing. So in my opinion, I really don't want to hear new testimony. They had that opportunity, and if we open it up, we have to open it up and have a new hearing. So and I'm not an attorney, so maybe the county attorney might want to chime in here, but once you open it up and receive new testimony, might as well throw the old record out and start with a new hearing. That's just from experience. That's what I have been told in the past. And if we want to open it up, we can, but I would caution anyone who wants to submit new evidence.
William, how does that apply to the magistrate reading comments for a public comment that may very well regard the planning and zoning?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, I think statutorily you're not required to have public comment at your fiscal court meeting generally regarding the agenda or items not on the agenda. But as I see it listed on this agenda, it's public comment pertaining to this particular meeting or general public comments. I think they're allowed. I think under the circumstances, it'd be completely reasonable to allow anybody to read into this record comments, public comments that participants are not able to get into the room because of the coronavirus would make if they were here. I don't think that necessarily translates to a formal hearing where a record's being made with respect to whether or not the planning commission's recommendation is proper. So I think there's an easy distinction to be made between public comment and a hearing record.
So kind of from a, if you didn't know any better standpoint, if we had another item on our agenda that said public hearing regarding XYZ, that is different than just having public comments and people say what they want to say.
Correct. There may be people who are interested in commenting who wouldn't be interested in participating in a hearing.
Okay. All right. Well, seeing as what the county attorney has said, I guess, Daniel, you can go ahead.
Okay. The first one I received is for the record, for the minutes there. I know we keep this as David and Dana Brookshire at 4236 McClure Road. Regarding the proposed zoning change to 4356 McClure Road, we would like to consider our opposition to this matter. The land included in the zone violates the current comprehensive plan as it is outside of what is considered areas of development. The newest subdivision is over 2 miles away. The change would also not be compatible with the area as all the surrounding property owners are in compliance with the agricultural A1 status. There has been no change in the area economically, socially, or physically that would justify altering the character of this area. Most of the surrounding landowners would like to keep the character of this area intact as there are no other developments of nature in the vicinity. The minimum road frontage requirement is 250 foot. The parcel has enough frontage for one single family home, not 3 or 4 as requested. Finally, there should be concern that approving this zoning change would allow other areas of the county to be used in a similar way. Anyone with extra land could request a cul-de-sac or a mini subdivision be approved, whether it be on Mount Sterling Road, Urban Road, Paris Pike, etc. Thank you for your consideration. The next one I received is from James Kaufman, that at address 4150 McClure Road. My understanding, there's someone wanting to rezone their farmland in order to build 3 separate dwellings or a house on the same 7-acre parcel of land with limited road frontage. As a current resident on McClure Road, this concerns me. If this is to be approved, my concern is it would set a troubling precedent. There have been several developers over the years that have tried to have their tracts rezoned in order to build additional neighborhoods. So far, they have been unsuccessful. If the current rezoning is somehow approved, developers could potentially be successful next time around. One house I can understand, possibly even 2. However, three or more homes in the area without direct road frontage to me is considered a neighborhood. Reference Darby, Hibiscus, Primrose, and other neighborhoods prior. All the area they are asking to build upon floods during heavy rains and current feeds into the creek. If the area is manipulated, how much will that affect the current roadway? Will the roadway flood even more? Drivers tend to accelerate turning off of Becknerville. Will this cause accidents? With the location put mail carriers and sanitation workers in harm's way? All we ask before approving the rezoning request is take everything and everyone affected into account. I just can't see it being a good idea. Thank you for your time. That's all I got.
Okay. Item number 10, consider approval of the transfers. Do I have a motion? Is
So moved.
there a second?
Second for discussion.
Okay. Would you like to discuss, Magistrate Constantopoulos?
Judge, the only question is, and maybe you can help explain, I just noticed we're out of contingent appropriations, we're putting that amount into the health insurance line item.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain why we're taking that out of contingent appropriations?
Well, I believe at least in part that is to help pay the shared health insurance that we are billed for on behalf of the sheriff's department. As to why Cheryl chose that particular line item, if you'd like me to see if I can get her on here, she could probably address that better than me. But if there's another line item that you think is more appropriate, you can suggest it. You want me to see if I can get Cheryl, or?
I'm right here.
Okay.
In coming up with the accounts to take the transfers from, because the current budget being appropriated the way it was, that was the only account at the time, and I was under pressure and time to get this to you all. That was the most obvious line item for me to pull it from. And the sheriff's health insurance line item started the fiscal year with a zero balance. So I transferred more than was needed in hopes to take care of future bills until we get to a point where we can appropriate it correctly for the rest of the year.
Okay, and that'll be reimbursed, correct?
It's supposed to be, yes. I've spoken to Charlene about that, and she said their biggest income time is when they start collecting taxes. That's when the money comes into their office from the property tax collection.
Yeah, the sheriff's department, now you know this, Daniel, but just for anyone else who may be listening, they really run pretty low, even sometimes taking out loan funds from private entities until tax bills come in. And this year, I know that the deadline for setting taxes has been changed because of the coronavirus. Who knows, the deadline for paying taxes could end up being changed. So we really need to keep an eye on, exactly how we fund the sheriff's department. And I think we probably need to go ahead and advance them this money at least until they get some tax funds in. Any further discussion? Okay, a motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries.
Who was my second on that one?
Me.
That was,
Thank you.
Daniel was the second.
Thank you.
For discussion, I don't know if you note that in the minutes or not. Item number 11, consider approval of the bills list. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a couple
Seeing
of questions. Judge, I have a couple
Okay.
of questions, if I may.
Okay.
Look at the animal shelter bills. There are several bills paid to Woodstock for animals. Do you know what that is and what the cause of those bills are?
Cheryl, can you pull those up real quick? I have a feeling I do know what it's for, but I don't want to speak without.
It lists it, Judge, as at Woodstock, I think, and they were for like $1,225 for 22 animals, $1,440 for supplies, $1,861 for 40 animals, and $971 for 18 animals.
Yeah, it's, go ahead.
Pulling up the bills, there are details lists that come with these, and they're for spay and neuter. And
That's what I thought.
Okay, okay. I had a question about those. I have another question. The bills list, page 4, jail supplies for $2,012.91 to Kentucky Bank.
That I do know offhand is for a credit card they possess that goes through Kentucky Bank. We got a statement in a while back that they asked us to figure out, and I referred that back to Susie, and it was for purchases they made for different items. Some of it was electronics, phone lines, computer graphic or computers, different things like that. I could pull the bill and give you a list of what she had the detail written on there if you'd like.
Yes, please, but no worry now, Cheryl. I don't need it now, just something to look at later. So I'll come by the office and get it. Thank you. One Another question on the road department, Arnett trailer for $5,100. Do we know what that is?
That's a trailer, I believe, if it's the one that I spoke with the road supervisor about, it's a trailer for one of the new pieces of equipment we've recently ordered. It might be the hot box. I'm not 100% sure if it's that or that other with a roller, but one of those pieces of equipment, I believe.
All right, and the hot box is on this bills list, and I just want to point that out, that there was a lot of chatter and talk and posts that said we had purchased that before the fiscal court approved it. I'd like it noted that we did not purchase it before we approved it. We agreed to purchase it last meeting, and the actual bill is on this bill's list to pay for it. So the fiscal court voted, and we're now voting to pay for it, which is the way it's supposed to be done, and it's the way it was done. So the hot box was not purchased prior to the fiscal court approving it. I have nothing further, Judge.
Thank you for clearing up that misinformation, Magistrate Elkins. Any further discussion of the bills list? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Note in minutes, training incentive payment in the amount of $4,312.60 to Greg Elkins for the completion of his 40-hour training units as required by KRS 64.5275 subsection 6. I just noticed this in relation to this. I missed it in my initial review. William, the DLG had sent a email over to us, and I think that we did use it for Magistrate Graham, suggesting that we should have a formal vote to approve these kind of payments and not just put them in the minutes. And I believe when we did it with Magistrate Graham, he recused himself. Do you think that would be a proper thing for us to take up right now in regards to Magistrate Elkins?
I think that's the proper approach, Judge.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the training incentives noted?
Motion made.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Magistrate Elkins, will you recuse yourself from this vote, please?
Judge, I would recuse.
Okay. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? And that motion does carry.
Who was the second on that one?
Joe Graham.
Okay. Thank you.
Item 13, review and acceptance of the Clark County Community Foundation Grant Agreement 2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Discussion.
Go ahead, Robert.
Is this something new? I mean, unless the judge in previous years have signed this just as an administrative function, I've never seen this before. And is it an administrative function? Do we need to act on it, or is it something new? I had called Haley Cunningham yesterday. Again, regretfully the delay, but again, I didn't know about it because we didn't get the packet till late Monday, or I would have called her earlier. She hasn't called me back yet to discuss this with her. So is this?
I think you're right, Robert, in saying that typically it's been an administrative function, but I spoke with the county attorney about it, and he recommended in abundance of caution, just go ahead and bring it before the fiscal court.
This isn't nothing new. It's just not a different way of approving it then.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 14, consider approval of an order to accept a bid from the Alley Company for the Jackson Ferry Road repaving project for the Clark County Road Department.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by Magistrate Thompson. Is there a second?
Second.
Who was that second?
Second.
Daniel.
Daniel? Okay. Any discussion?
Judge, one question. We only received one bid on this. Is that correct?
That is correct. And did the bids come in? Was that Friday morning when they came in, Janet?
I believe this one came in late Thursday afternoon.
Okay, and the opening was on Friday morning. And so, you know, we wanted to get this on the agenda so the people out on Jackson Ferry could go ahead and get their road paved and not have to wait another couple weeks, especially with rain. And you never know when somebody else clogs up the Allen Company schedule. So that's one of the orders that we were waiting a little later on. But, you know, I thought it was important that we get to Jackson Ferry Road. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 15, consider approval of an order to approve an agreement with the Bourbon County Regional Detention Center for the housing of Clark County inmates. Do I have a motion?
Judge, I make a motion to approve that, but I have one amendment that I'd like to bring up.
Let me get that out. Okay, well, I think the way that's supposed to work, Travis, is you either offer a friendly amendment or you make a motion a second and then you make an amendment with a second. I think that's how it's supposed to work.
I'll make a motion and then if I can make an amendment after we get a second.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, now Travis is going to make a motion to amend.
Motion to amend, and you have it in front of you,
I do.
down where it says section 2,
Yep.
that the county judge executive, I would amend, the jailer's discretion is authorized to execute such agreement and take necessary steps to give such agreement effect.
So Travis is asked to change section 2 to reflect that instead of or along with or.
Meaning that if the jailer requests you to execute it at his discretion.
Okay, so Travis wants section 2 to read, the county judge executive is authorized upon the jailer's request to execute such agreement and take necessary steps to give such agreement effect.
I'm fine with that language, Judge.
Is there a second?
Judge,
I'll second it.
Judge, if I may, I don't.
Okay, go ahead, County Attorney Elkins.
I don't think that this legislative body has the ability to delegate that responsibility to another constitutional office. The statute charges the fiscal court with the responsibility of housing prisoners. So, well, I think, Jailer Dole's thoughts on the subject are very important. And I think that you could bring the matter before the fiscal court if he requested you to do that. But I don't think that you could give him the final say.
Okay. So basically you're saying it's an improper amendment under the law.
As I understood the amendment, if the amendment were put into effect, it would give the Clark County jailer the ability to contact the Clark County judge. And by virtue of their one informing the other, the judge could then send all Clark County inmates to Bourbon County. I don't think I don't think that's within your executive function, and I don't think that the fiscal court could designate that responsibility to the jailer.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that'd be legal. Be simple about it.
All right, I understand.
William, are you saying that only the fiscal court can decide where the inmates are housed?
Correct.
So do we need to change that from judge executive to fiscal court?
Is that okay, William?
I think that's okay, mostly because that's the way it is anyway. the contract's not a shifting of or as I understand this order and the contract, it's not a shifting of where Clark County inmates are being housed. There would still have to be further action on part of the fiscal court. So I don't, the language is redundant to the reality, and that is you'd have to meet again. Somebody would have to move and second and get a majority vote to carry that out anyway.
Okay.
Judge?
So in section 2,
Well, I think section 2, Judge, is only giving you the authority to execute this agreement, correct?
Correct.
yeah, actually, now that I read it a little further, I think you're right about that as well.
I think it's okay the way it's written because it clearly says that the fiscal court is responsible and shall provide for the incarceration of prisoners. The Clark County Fiscal Court may do so by contracting with other counties or a city. So I think it is giving the authority to the fiscal court, but the fiscal court is giving the judge the authority to sign the agreement with Bourbon County.
So there
That's
had
the way I read the
Wow.
order. I'm not an attorney either, but
So there had to be another order to actually start housing inmates in Bourbon County. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm
And-
okay.
and-
I withdraw my motion to amend then, Judge.
Okay. So motion has been made and seconded. Further discussion?
And I would just like to thank Magistrate Elkins. We did meet twice over the last 3 weeks. I thought the meeting was very productive. Everybody brought something to the table. I think the relationship with the jail and the fiscal court is much improved because of it. I think we're much more on the same page than we were, and I just would like to thank Magistrate Elkins for his time out of his busy schedule to do that.
thank you as well, Magistrate Thompson. You were a integral part of the meeting as well, so thank you. And I'd like to thank the jailer for his participation.
If those have been productive meetings. Even if we don't all agree on the math all the time, and I don't know that we all still yet agree on the math, I think that at least we've got a better working relationship with one another. And one thing that I would like to point out, and if you've seen from day one, any quote from me has been that if, I know there's been a lot of scuttlebutt about shutting down the jail. Anytime anybody's asked me, I said, we're not looking to shut down the jail. We're looking to enter into an inmate agreement. And obviously, I think the county attorney has made it clear today, nothing in this document gives anyone the authority to go ahead and make that sort of move. If something like that were to ever happen, I would assume there would have to be an order, and it would have to be done separately by the fiscal court. So again, misinformation out there, and we're trying to do what we can to correct. But I have enjoyed the meetings with the jailer, and I've enjoyed meeting with his staff and some of the public who are concerned and are helping him out with the budgeting as well. So that being said, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. Item number 16, consider approval of an ordinance and summary of ordinance for a change of zoning classification of a tract of land containing 9.21 acres, more or less, located at 4356 McClure Road, Winchester, Kentucky, from agricultural A1 zoning to single-family residential R1A zoning. Do I have a motion?
Judge, we're going to have to take this up, so I will make the motion.
A motion has been made by Magistrate Elkins. Is there a second for discussion, I assume? Anyone?
Judge,
Robert, go ahead. I believe that the way that the rules read on this is if the fiscal court does not act within 90 days, it is approved because of the absence of our act. Am I correct about that, William?
That's correct. And that's the only point I wanted to make, that inaction by default would wind up with some permanent adoption of their recommendation at some point. You're correct, it is 90 days.
That's my reason for the motion. We're going to have to take it up.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded for discussion. Would anyone like to discuss this particular item?
I just have a question, if I may.
Sure.
I know it has a place for the county attorney to sign. It doesn't say prepared by him. So I assume the format and form and all of this ordinance is in proper form. Is that correct, county attorney?
Well, maybe the one that you have in your hand doesn't reflect that. It begins with saying an ordinance of the Clark Fiscal Court. I think the documents that were drafted by the Planning Commission staff said City of Winchester on the top of it.
And then at the end, as well as a few other spots in there. So again, and do you know who prepared this document?
I don't have any idea who prepared it. I assume it was Robert Jeffries, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would assume it was either Robert Jeffries or the planning and zoning attorney, one or the other. And I think that's Mr. Dykeman, is it not?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And Judge,
I can tell you they're the one who provided it to us.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Judge, I was just going to say, if you had questions or something, there was a message here that said that Rob Jeffries was on the call if you had a question or needed to ask any question to him in regard to that.
Okay. Do you need me to seek him out for you, Robert?
No, that's fine. I spoke to Mr. Jeffries yesterday and got some information that I needed.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I have a couple of questions, Judge, if I could ask of Mr. Jeffries. I've looked at the packet and the public comment that was offered, and I do understand, if I read it correctly, and Mr. Jeffries, I would welcome his thoughts and corrections if I'm wrong. This map amendment would be in opposition to our comprehensive plan, if I understand it correctly. And I would just wonder what the reasoning was for a map amendment that is contradictory to our comprehensive plan.
Judge, may I?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I think statutorily, what the fiscal court has in front of them is a recommendation by the Planning Commission. And because they made a recommendation and didn't send it to you without, without a recommendation, there's three possibilities. They could have recommended that it be rejected. They could have recommended it be approved, or they could have made no recommendation. In the third instance, if they made no recommendation, then some hearing could be proper for the fiscal court. I think that the statutory design at this point is to consider, without reopening the matter, the evidence that they've submitted to you in the form of the documents they provided, and see if you can see within that record itself a reason why, as a fiscal court member, you may or may not be able to accept their recommendation, and then cast a vote upon those grounds, or let the thing lay for 90 days, at which point it'll become the law of the land. I don't think that, and I appreciate the interest, and I certainly respect Master Elkins' position, but I think at the end of the day, it's not an opportunity to reopen the matter for taking a new evidence.
So what you're basically saying, William, is if we do question and answer with the planning and zoning coordinator, that might be considered reopening the record.
Correct.
So
Okay.
I would ask this of the county attorney, and I think if I understood him correctly, we just take the documentation that was given to us and we have to make a decision based on that. And if the documentation was incomplete in the magistrate's mind to help him decide one way or the other, then he can't seek further information, just has to make a decision based on what I have in front of me. Is that the way I understood you to say that?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I'll just say this, Judge, because I am the magistrate that does represent this district, and, coming to a decision regarding this map amendment, has been very difficult as I represent all parties involved. After reviewing the information and that was provided by planning and zoning and the director, I just feel like I recommend that we need to reject the recommendation and findings of P&Z as insufficient. So that's kind of my stance on it.
Okay.
Comment, Judge.
Go ahead, Robert.
Everyone knows I'm the first person to uphold the recommendation of any body or committee that we have, whether it's planning commission or any of the other bodies that we had, animal shelter or any others. But in this particular case, in my opinion, the findings are woefully inadequate as far as KRS 100 is required. The motion does not state there was it's in conformance with the comprehensive plan, nor does the motion state there was significant change in the area. And it doesn't say that the original zoning was inappropriate. So, and there's no evidence in the motion or in any of the information submitted that would indicate substantial confirmation of any of those. So again, I would urge the Planning Commission to make better findings in any case, and then try to convey those to the court if those, in fact, if that evidence was presented, to try to convey those to the court. But in this particular instance, in my opinion, it's the motion is totally inadequate to support those reasonable findings in KRS 100.
Comments, if I may, Judge?
Go ahead.
I would tend to agree that I've looked at and read through everything that was presented to us and am left with numerous questions, 6 of them to be exact. And if I could get those answered, I would possibly support this map amendment, but because everyone knows I'm pro-growth and I love to see growth in the county, wherever it may be or wherever we can. But I also feel like that we have laws on the books and ordinances on the books that whether I agree with them or not, doesn't mean that I have the opportunity or the ability to not follow them. I think we have to follow the plans that we have in place and the laws that we have on the books, no matter how we feel about them. So we don't like the laws, we can change them, but we can't ignore them. So I too can't support this amendment, map amendment. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Obviously, Magistrate Blanton has got, I believe 20 plus years of experience with planning and zoning. I think his words are probably ring true. Also, I think especially in situations that are to a particular area such as this, it's important to take into account that particular magistrate's viewpoint. And I know this is definitely all within Magistrate Constantopoulos' district, and he actually lives pretty close to this area. So I think his words are, especially impactful to me as well. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none. Go ahead.
I'd like to say that I really hate these decisions being made over Zoom meetings, any kind of zoning or any real important decision like that. And I just really bothers me that public aren't allowed to come in and make comments face to face. And I just feel like I won't be able to support it either.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Judge, I think we see where this is going, but I just want to add the one point to anybody that may be listening. And the one thing is I looked at the packet that turned my opinion toward opposing it is the fact that, this property, this 9 acres is going to be subdivided into, I think, 3 residential lots and then 1 for common space, a common area, with the construction of a gravel road. And looks like that's how they were going to get their 250 feet of road frontage. When it looks like to me our current ordinance is pretty clear in subdivision regulations is that to get that 250 feet of road frontage, you have to be on a public right of way. Now this is a private easement to the benefit of these proposed lots. And I don't think that I don't think that meets the standard. We have that road, that right-of-way rule for a reason. It's an important reason. And I think this proposal, I'm a little perplexed as to how it made it even out of planning and zoning, or if it had staff approval, but that's not my call to make. It seems to me the whole gravel road issue, we would really be opening up a true Pandora's box if we allow people to subdivide A1 property or rural property using a gravel road as your road frontage. And I think we can only imagine the kind of problems in the future that's going to present for the county and for everybody involved, the neighboring property owners. So I think to me, that's the most, that's the strongest argument for not approving this plan. I don't think it really goes to, kind of a growth or anti-growth argument. It's just inappropriate rezoning. And I think it begins and ends there. So I can't support it.
Okay. Well, generally I would do a roll call vote, but I think we're safe to do a voice vote on this one. All those in favor of the ordinance respond by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. Nay. Okay, it appears that did not pass. Item number 17, consider approval of an order to purchase computer equipment for the Clark County Emergency Management Agency / CSEC. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there a second?
Who's that?
Any discussion?
Daniel?
No, it was Travis.
I thought that Travis, yeah.
I was delayed, sorry.
Oh, okay. Blanton and Travis, Thompson?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And Judge,
Any
just to be
discussion?
clear, Judge, I'm sorry, just to be clear, this is pass-through money, correct?
Correct. All three of these motions today, according to Mr. Epperson, are going to be sought for reimbursement. And as we kind of spoke about during our budgeting process, the hope is he can get some of these reimbursements done quickly, and if that's done efficiently, to lessen our risk down the road when we look at amending our budget, which we're probably going to have to do for compost and CARES money, and perhaps for CSEP as well. Maybe we could readdress some more funding if we're successful in getting these reimbursed. But because of the coronavirus, I didn't want to bite off more than we could chew in the budget until we got some reimbursement.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 18, consider approval of an order to purchase an emergency shelter and related apparatus for the Clark County Emergency Management Agency. Do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
That is Elkins and Davis. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries. Next item, consider approval of an order to purchase an electric generator for the Clark County Emergency Management Agency. Do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That also carries. Item number 20, consider approval of an order for Judge Executive Pace to send a letter of support for economic development to the Wild Brand manufacturer. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay, discussion? the one piece of discussion I have on this is this kind of goes back to our order on orders that we had a few weeks ago. I believe the clerk has expressed that she would like us to take these orders up separately. I don't know whether or not we referenced that we wanted an order in that meeting or not. County Attorney Elkins, do you have anything to add on that at all? I don't really remember the circumstances that well, to tell you the truth.
Yes, there's already been an order prepared. It's prepared on July 23rd when you took that up. So I don't know where it's at, but it's around.
Okay. I thought there might have been. Michelle, are you on there?
I am.
Okay, can you explain to William what the issue is? Because I'm a little confused on it myself.
When I went back and watched the tape, the motion was to have you do a letter of support. There was not a motion to do an order.
We didn't have an order.
Correct.
We didn't have an order in the packet to approve. And even though we've approved an order, I think there's a limit to things that we actually need to have orders on. And I don't know where that point ends or begins, but I would think that a simple letter wouldn't require an order. But again, I'm not the final say on that.
So I was just going by what the motion was. It was for you to do an order of support. So that's what I put in the minutes.
If we take that stand, then item number 12 and 13 from today's agenda, we will also need orders on those as well. From motions we've done today, we will need orders on those two things today that we've approved. So again, I'm a bit confused as to what needs orders and what doesn't need orders. So pardon my ignorance.
I thought that we attempted at least to cover this when we had our order at a previous meeting. It may have been one meeting ago, may have been 2 meetings ago, basically saying that we would put anything that we pass in a meeting on paper as an order afterwards. I guess my question is that enough? Is there some other step we need to take? Or can we simply, like Robert referenced, for item number 12 and 13, can the county attorney provide an order to us that I can sign and the clerk can sign and we can enter into the record? And seems to me that's a legal question. So County Attorney Elkins, what's your thought on that?
How about whenever you make a motion and second, if there's not an order in the packet, I think, if it's a substantial issue, I think you ought to ask that a formal order be presented at the next meeting for review. Make sure that it captures your work.
Or would it be okay if I amend my motion to authorize the judge to prepare a letter of support and erase the language order?
The judge has already prepared and signed the letter, so I'll go ahead and tell you all that.
That's what I thought. So
the order's already prepared too, and I just emailed it to the judge and Deputy Townsend again just now. I'm not suggesting, that I've reviewed whether or not it was emailed before. Perhaps it was a product of the matter having come up before the court that night. I did it, immediately following the meeting. I don't recall. I just looked because I recognized when I was reading the agenda that an order was going to be required. And so I thought, well, let me see if I have something close to that. And as I was looking, I noticed I already had the actual order. So I just sent it. I'd be glad to send it to everybody else on their phone right now, and you can see it if you're available.
I think if the judge would read the order aloud, that would satisfy me.
You want me to read it?
Hang on.
I've got it right here.
It's the packet. It's my packet. Are you talking about the order that?
The order was sent. County attorney did send the order on the 23rd after that meeting. The question became, because it wasn't in reference as an order in the minutes, we brought it back before the court, but the county attorney did send it that evening after our meeting.
And I guess to give a little more detail, I think from what Michelle's saying is when she notes orders in the meeting, she assigns an order number.
Correct.
And So she needs to know whether or not an order is going to be presented so that she can put the appropriate number on everything in the minutes. Is that pretty much sum it up, Michelle?
That is correct, because if I don't put an order number to it right then, and you all go on and pass more orders, my numbers are not going to coincide, and they're going to be all messed up in the books, which I do not want.
Yeah, and the order is in the packet. It just says 2020 dash blank. So.
Yeah. So I think what Michelle's concern was with the prior order was if it wasn't in the packet and she didn't have a number for it, she didn't know how to put it in the minutes. So she wanted it on the agenda again so we could assign an appropriate number.
If you are going to get
could be important. So I think maybe the right way to go about it is, County Attorney Elkins, do you think we should just go ahead and bring all these orders to the next meeting after the fact, even though they've already been approved? Would that make sense?
I think so, but I don't think that's going to help Michelle's issue.
Right, it's not.
Yeah, so maybe the thing to do, Judge, and I'm trying to be helpful here, I think somehow this gets further over in the weeds than what might be a straight legal question. But maybe if whoever made the move in second, it's not in the packet, would just suggest, can we get an order on that? I'm sure the consensus in the room will be, well, sure. At that point in time, I think Clerk Turner will know that, there's going to be an order. So she
That would be very helpful.
Make a number as a placeholder.
Okay, so we'll attempt to reference an order, and then she can go ahead and assign it a number and put it in the minutes like that, and that should take care of it.
So you're going to do that on the agenda? Is that correct? If we need an order, you will put that order number on the agenda, even if we don't have an order? Is that what you're saying?
If that's what the court wishes, but at least I'll know that I'm to do an order. Do I
do an agenda, and I just.
So the county attorney suggested that we should say we want an order when we make our motions. That way, Michelle is tipped off to write down order and then to reserve a number for that particular motion. I think that would probably cover all the bases. And then I guess the next question becomes, what happens if someone forgets to say they want an order? I guess we have to just bring it up at the next meeting and it's noted in the minutes and that's it.
Well, that's my point from item 12 and 13 today. There was no mention of an order, but if we do what the county attorney's saying, he'll need to prepare an order for those two actions of item 12 and 13 today, because we took an action.
I don't disagree. That's certainly something that, here lately, that I would have taken up as soon as the meeting concluded.
Okay. Well, is there anything we can do today regarding item number 12 and 13 that would solve everyone's problem? Or is this something that we probably need to figure out between meetings? What do you all think?
If you all want to, go ahead.
I think 12 and 13 have already been taken up and voted on. We have not yet voted on 20. Is that the
Well, those will definitely be noted in the minutes. How about I assume, Michelle, you're not planning on assigning an order number to 12 or 13, correct?
I was not, but if that's what the court wishes, now would be the time to do it. Mr. Elkins can, prepare an order and get that to me and we can get one for it. If that's what you so choose to do.
When you think about pure parliamentary procedure, some things are done by such general consent that even no vote is necessary. Some of the work that you do is so ministerial that it really doesn't require a volume of writing. It would seem that the consent was so unanimous with respect to these issues that to back up now and assign the writing of an order would be unnecessary, but I'm here.
I agree with that. And why would we need an order for the action we took last last meeting about writing a simple letter to for the industrial authority of support. Why would that need an order?
Well, we didn't get any relief at that time. Nobody brought it up and said, hey, Elkins, you don't have to write that one. So I did.
Well, the motion didn't say we needed an order. So, I mean, why do we need an order?
But because you made a motion and it was approved by the court that when work is done, that an order be written. And so following
I
that order.
didn't make that motion. No, sir.
Okay, so somebody did a couple of meetings ago.
Well, it wasn't me, because I think a lot of things we can do administratively, and someone said we needed an order, so I don't recall who that was, but I'm certainly a big supporter of letting the administration do their job without having to follow up with full court action on an order for something as simple as a simple letter. So,
Hey, Judge.
Daniel.
I think moving forward, why don't we just, if we want an order, we mention it in our motion and assign it an order number, and then Mr. Elkins can write it. And if we don't want an order and just want it logged into the minutes, we just don't say order.
I agree with that 100%, and that was my entire point on the previous discussion we had with regards to the Parks and Recreation Department. I didn't think we needed an order, so I didn't say prepare an order. But yet we had an order prepared the next day. So Daniel, this is one thing that you and I agree 100% on. If we need an order, we should say so in the motion. And I agree with you 100%.
So back to item number 20 then, whether or not we need an order or want an order in support of the letter regarding Wild Brand Manufacturer.
I think it's unnecessary and the motion has already been approved. So we need to strike that item from the agenda.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I mean, there's an order prepared. It's there. I've made a motion to vote on it. Let's vote on it.
Okay. Let's do a roll call vote. All those in favor respond aye when we do the vote.
Magistrate Thompson,
Yes.
Magistrate Blanton,
Now, pursuant to the discussion we just had, if it's unnecessary, we don't need to approve it.
Magistrate Constantopoulos,
Yes.
Magistrate Davis,
Yes.
Magistrate Graham,
I'm going to vote yes, but I agree with Magistrate Blanton.
Magistrate Elkins,
I'm going to vote yes pursuant to the discussion we just had. This magistrate requested an order.
and Judge.
No, I didn't.
I did.
Okay, but I made
the motion.
Judge,
I'll vote yes, and I'll also note that I hope all of us try to find some Wild Brand chips, and I hope that they do go ahead and invest in our community.
all right, 6-1, motion carries.
Okay. Item number 21, magistrate comment. Let's see here, Magistrate Graham.
Well, the only comments I have is I keep getting people that are not in favor of this solar project. I keep getting lots of comments on that, and so far I've found no one in favor of it. So whenever this comes up, I don't know, we need to look at it pretty seriously. That's all I have.
Magistrate Thompson.
I have a few things, Judge. I'll be as brief as I can. First, have we named an interim chief at the fire department?
The interim chief is Mr. Puckett. The committee made that recommendation, I don't know, about a week and a half ago.
Okay. I was unaware of that until Mr. Puckett made me aware of it when I saw him over the weekend, and brings me to my next discussion is that Mr. Puckett indicates that he has people that are ready to go to work that we could hire, that are trained and qualified and ready to go. And I'm curious what the holdup is into being able to hire at the fire department. I don't know how often it's happening, but I know on Sunday we had another station down due to understaffing. I don't think it was down the whole day, but I know it was down for part of the day, according to Chief Puckett. So I'm curious what we can do as a fiscal court, or what the holdup is, or what our plan is to try to get some firefighters hired for the fire department.
I believe that is an item, or I guess Magistrate Elkins, are you gonna?
Yeah, I was just gonna,
Offer-
I was gonna offer that, I am along with, I think the judges as well on the fire committee, and we have a special called meeting coming up to discuss that very issue. We have made several changes to pay and other things to allow for the hiring of new firefighters, and I think that has prompted some new applications, and I think we'll be able to come up with some new employees. I can't answer why we haven't done it in the past, but I do get the sense that there's a desire to go ahead and make a move on that now. So,
When is that meeting?
is it Monday? I think it's this coming Monday.
Monday at 8 o'clock, I believe.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So potentially after that meeting, we could begin advertising for hiring.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's okay to start. I think it's okay to start hiring now. There's nothing that says we can't hire. Matter of fact, the fire committee has encouraged on numerous occasions the hiring of new firefighters. So
there's no need to wait for that meeting.
I'm sorry.
No need to wait for that meeting to begin hiring. The application process.
Yeah, I think he has several applications. If he wants to wait until that meeting, I'm okay with that. I can't speak for the committee, but I don't think there's any order out there that instructs him not to hire prior to that meeting. Judge may be able to speak to that better than I.
But keep in mind, we don't, that was Chief Barnes' dilemma. Our job descriptions do not exist. So that is an
That's
issue.
what I was about to say. The reason that Chief Barnes was reluctant to pull the trigger on hiring was because he wanted to make some changes regarding job descriptions and to include that in the administrative code. Then, somewhat unexpectedly, Chief Barnes retired. So my question is, simply from a management standpoint, until we have a new chief, do we want to go ahead and approve hires that we don't know for sure whether the new chief would approve? I don't know if that's an appropriate action to take under an interim chief or not. I suspect that's something that will be discussed in the meeting on Monday, though.
I expect it will. My thoughts would be if we're suffering brownouts now, we probably should take emergency action to prevent that from happening. But that's fire committee discussion, I think. So I'm sure we'll have that discussion Monday and welcome the public's input on that as well.
Anything else, Travis?
Yeah. Next, I understand the treasurer process has been narrowed down to 3. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I personally, and I'm just speaking for myself here, I would like to request that are those 3 going to be interviewed again?
Correct.
I would like to see that happen in closed session of a fiscal court meeting so that everyone can participate in the finalists. That's just my opinion. I don't know how the rest of the court feels about it. Next thing I have is in regards to the packets, and I'm not asking for a response here, Judge. I am simply pleading with you. Please get us our packets in a timely manner. For me, on Friday afternoon would be absolutely fantastic. I had incredibly little time to prepare for this meeting, and there was some significant stuff in it, including that zoning ordinance. We have asked and we have asked and we have asked that this be remedied, yet it continues. And I don't know the cause of it. I get a lot of different excuses, but I am just begging and pleading with you today to please get our packets out to us on Friday afternoon. If there's anything that this magistrate can do to help with that, please reach out and I'll show up. So
I do have a question for you, Travis, in that regard. If you would like to just answer this question.
Yes.
It'd be no problem at all for us to get out an agenda on Friday and to get out the majority of the packet. The problem is oftentimes there'll be something lingering. Like, for instance, like I said, and this is specific to your actual district, we had the bid opening on Jackson Ferry that we wanted to get on the packet. We didn't have time to matriculate an order on it, but we didn't want those people on Jackson Ferry to have to wait 2 more weeks in order to get their paving done. And that was one of the things that held up this packet, along with, the simple transition of treasurer things that, it still held up a few things. So my question is, would you prefer if we went ahead and sent out things that are in the packet, sent out an agenda and said, we'll get you these other documents later once they're provided to us? Is that something that you would like?
my personal opinion, I would prefer to get as much as possible on Friday afternoon or Friday evening. That gives me the weekend to review it. And I understand that things linger. I understand that things come in. I don't take issue to that. I would prefer to get something as opposed to nothing.
Okay, that's perfectly reasonable.
Last but certainly not least, I just want to send my well wishes to the sheriff as he's recovering well, and just wanted to mention that. So.
Thank you. Bishop Blanton.
Yeah, I have a couple things. First, I do want to wish the sheriff well as well, and echo Travis's thoughts about the packet. And it's all about time management. If you've got something on Thursday and Friday, maybe you need to work on the packets on Wednesday, because this is quite a bit of information to go through. I was scrambling even late last night to go out by that zoning change site on McClure Road, because I always try to look at those. So it's normally I would do that over the weekend. So it causes some difficulty in trying to do a thorough review of the packets. So I echo those sentiments exactly. The two things I do have, the PVA has advised me that his tax roll has been certified, that the state rate for real and tangible property has remained the same. So we're in good shape on that. And then a bit of housekeeping. If you've noticed the Vietnam Veterans Memorial out behind the courthouse, we planted some real pretty flowers, but the weeds have overtaken it and there's no mulch. So if we could get someone to pay a little attention to the grounds, whether it's the custodian or the people who, I don't know who it is, but as opposed to being unsightly, we might as well just not do it at all if we're not going to take care of it. So if someone could pay some attention to that and straighten that up a bit, I would appreciate that. And that's all I've got.
Robert, I'll address that as well. We do have, and Janet, cut me off if I get close to saying something that I shouldn't reveal because of personnel. But we have one of the members of our staff that works on those sorts of issues who is on long-term leave, basically under a doctor's note. And so we're a little understaffed there right now.
Well, let's hire somebody part-time too.
I'll see if I can get the road department to look at it under, maybe use some LGEA funds to pay for it. Okay.
Thank you.
Magistrate Davis.
Thank you, Judge. Just a couple of things. I want to thank you for putting that on the agenda with respect to US 60. That's one of those issues where there's a lot of talk and some of the information is accurate, some of it's others. I do want to point out that this funding, and we may or may not have mentioned this, is largely based on income. And so those subdivisions or developments that you heard those ladies discuss and single out were largely because, number one, they met the low or moderate income criteria. And secondly, because they have aging facilities or package plants, as they're called, that need to be retired. Now, if this project happens, it may just be one small phase. It may be multiple phases. We don't know yet what's going to be available to us or how it'll even be structured. Of course, one of the key reasons I'm interested in it is because it could potentially affect a lot of people on that end of the county, including a lot of people in my district who have to live with these aging facilities. While this meeting was going on, I was getting messages from a constituent of mine who lives in Yorktown, who was very adamant about the problems they'd had with that old package plant there, and that they band-aided it, and their relationships with with Kentucky American, because that's where they buy their water. And, it's a difficult place for people that have to live with this. And as I said earlier in the meeting, a lot of these people out there feel like they've been stranded. They feel like they've been ignored by the county for not just years, but in some cases decades. And, I'm going to do what I can to advocate for those people. I don't know how quickly we'll resolve this, but if it's something that I think is feasible and will benefit people who are already living there, then I'm going to be for it. Now, if somebody else, whether it's a homeowner or a developer, gets some additional benefit from it, obviously, I assume this will be structured so that somebody could buy in. So if somebody wants to invest in the project, then that may be the case. Obviously, we would be expanding the footprint of the sanitary sewer system to at least some extent. But I just wanted to point that out, that there are, real people who live in these areas that have been talking to me and others for a long time about this. I heard about it, these package plants, long before I was a magistrate, because I know people that live in these neighborhoods. So I just wanted to say that, Judge, and I'll try to make myself as available as possible so that we can meet and get some answers before the next meeting. I do think it's important, and I do hope we can move on it. And secondly, Judge, I want to note, just although it is very much a local matter, although it's not a county government matter, I just want everybody to be aware. I think some of us saw the notice in the Winchester Sun regarding the school board. I think we'll be considering tax rates for the coming year. And it appeared to me that at least they were, and I may have been looking at that notice wrong, I think they were, at least there's some entertainment of raising those tax rates, property tax rate. And everybody needs to understand, if you own property, you look at that tax bill every year. I think, Judge, if I'm not mistaken, that is the single biggest part of our property tax bills.
Yes, it is by far.
Is that of the school board. They collect more in property taxes than this county does. So that is very impactful to the local economy. And I hope that everybody that was as concerned about whether or not the schools reopen, or whether we do in person, or whether we do online, or whatever the case, I hope they're as mindful of what this school board does on our tax rates and the impact it has on the whole local economy as they are on these other issues, because they collect more of these county property taxes, or these property taxes, than any other entity, as far as I know. Certainly more than the county, the city, the library board, the health department, and so forth. So I just wanted to make people aware of that. I know a lot of people don't take the physical copy of the Winchester Sun anymore. I'm not sure it was on the online edition or not, but I want to make people aware that was coming up. And we can certainly get more information about that. Judge, I know you hear from a lot of people about property taxes, and we are able to lower ours last year. A couple of the other smaller taxing authorities were able to lower theirs a bit. But I'm not sure what will happen with the school board. And I'm not going to offer any commentary on that at this time. But I'm hopeful that the people in this county watch this very, very closely. This is by far, they have, of all local government, the single largest budget of all local government, more than the city, more than the county, more than anybody. I think, judging it somewhere north of 90 million now.
It's north of 70, and I think it's been in the ballpark of mine.
Of course, some of that's local tax dollars. I know they get federal dollars, state dollars, and so on.
Yeah, it's according to how you do the calculation, but
it's according to how you do the calculation. But all told, you're in the tens of millions of dollars, and that is a huge deal. And I know schools are very important, but I know that people are under a lot of economic burden right now, including people that have had to close businesses, shut businesses, lay off people. Some have been laid off. And it really has been a financial crisis for a lot of people. So I just want to offer that, Judge, and appreciate our actions today. And that's all I have.
Okay. Magistrate Elkins, did I call on you yet?
Not yet, Judge. I had a couple of things. I wanted to update the court a bit on the treasurer hire. Magistrate Thompson, I think it was correct in saying we have narrowed it down. We did interviews. We've narrowed it down to 3 candidates, very, very qualified candidates, I think. So feel very fortunate to have had as many respondents as we did, qualified respondents at that. And we will, over the next couple of weeks, narrow that 3 down to 1 and somehow or another get a treasurer hired. We know the need for a treasurer. We understand that Cheryl is overburdened at the moment, and she's trying to do the job of two people. And I understand the deputy judge is helping out with that a lot. But we don't want to rush and get the wrong person. We want to take our time and get the right person. And I think we can do that and hopefully have a recommendation for this court by the next meeting. That's what our hope is. EMS update, another committee that I'm on. We're, I think, nearing the resolution of that committee, being done with that. I think we've got at least a bid to handle the transfers. Several of us have worked on that for months and maybe even more than a year now. So we're at least getting close to having something to present to this court as well on that committee. The one final issue I have, Judge, is a piece of property in Wayland Heights that has been on our list of things that we've dealt with for some time. And I think even the county attorney told me that there had been some summonses issued for this piece of property, 210 Wayne Court. I would ask if we could get a county department, probably the road department, or hire someone to get the grass cut on that property. It's literally taller than a chain link fence. Been over a year since it's been mowed, and it is woefully unkept and needs to be fixed. The neighborhood would appreciate it. So if there's something we could do there, Judge, I'm going to ask that we do that.
County Attorney Elkins, are you there?
Ma'am.
Okay. I'm sure you're familiar with the piece of property that Master Elkins is referencing. It's the one that I've viewed personally. I believe your detective has viewed it. It's become overgrown, and I think some of the neighbors are worried about possible infestation of rats and snakes and all sorts of other little creatures. Is there are we able to, absent action of the homeowner, are we able to send county employees in to perform maintenance such as cutting grass and then to attempt to get that reimbursed, I guess, through the means of your office? That's something we could do.
Well, the county attorney's office has already issued ordinance violation complaints for these folks who live out of town. It's now a matter of them being served by the local law enforcement authorities where they reside. The rest of your question, Judge, is something I'm not prepared to answer off the cuff. I'd be glad to get back to you on that.
Okay. Well, would it be appropriate for us as a body to at least take up a motion to have, the road department using LGA funds or straight fiscal court funds for that matter, to perform that maintenance, and then we address the rest of it later? Or is that something that skirts some legal issue that we shouldn't do?
Well, this discussion didn't just start here. We've been having it for some time. And one of the questions is whether or not we have an appropriate administrative board for this person or property owner to make an appeal to. That's a question that I've been asked a couple of times over the last couple of weeks. Nobody's given me an answer to that yet. Without knowing, I haven't had any opportunity to look at it any further. So when I get the information I've asked for, I'll put together a more complete answer.
Okay. Maybe I didn't phrase my question well enough. I'm gonna try it this way. Can we have county personnel perform maintenance on the property and then just not know whether or not we'll get reimbursed? Just take the risk that we may not. I think that's what Magistrate Elkins is getting at, correct?
It is, whether it be county employees or we hire a service to do it. But and I think if the magistrates did take it up, they would have to understand that we may not get reimbursed for it, but we should seek reimbursement if possible.
Short of the processes that are already in place, Kentucky statutes and our own local ordinances, I'm not aware of any additional set of regulations that we could refer to answer that question. I don't know of any regulation that provides that opportunity. But again, this is all just kind of on the spot because this didn't just start here.
Okay.
And given
Greg,
the information more time, I could answer your question.
Greg, it seems to me like, according to what the county attorney's saying, it's going to have to wait until he gets further information. And I think he's probably waiting on a response back maybe from the city regarding that administrative board as well.
Magistrate Elkins, I would support hiring somebody to do it if that's something you're interested in, if it resolves the problem with the road department. I mean, it definitely needs to be done.
Yes, thank you, Magistrate Thompson. It does. I wonder if there's a way that we can take this up now and find a means to deal with it later. I'd hate to see this put off for 2 more weeks to the next meeting, because it's bad. It just continues to get worse. I guess it's not the end of the world if we have to wait 2 more weeks to do it correctly. We should probably do that, but it certainly needs done if we can find a way to get it done.
Let me add something, since we're talking about Wayland. We received a call in the judge's office on one of the properties in Wayland. There's a question of the ownership. The man who got the summons is saying, I am no longer the owner. I sold it months ago. So that, and I, I sent that information back over to the detective. So before we go on, just, there is a question of ownership on one of the Wayland properties that we've been discussing.
Yeah, and there are 2 over there.
And soon to be a 3rd.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have to keep in mind that the property owners, look, I'm not supporting the overgrowth of weeds here, but you have to keep in mind that the property owners in Clark County have to be aware of what the rule is so that they can conform to it. And right now, there is no rule, as I've suggested, that I'm aware of that would permit you to do that. And if I'm not aware of it, I suspect the property owner's not aware of it either. So if you want such a rule, you can certainly create one by ordinance, but right now I'm not aware of any rule.
So I guess what you're saying, William, is hypothetically, so far as we know, we have no authority to move in and perform maintenance. And technically, if we authorize something like that, it could potentially be a trespass. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. And
okay. I hear you.
Well, it falls against a much larger background, and that is that we still have to compile all our regulations in one place where we can all look at them. I mean,
Okay. I understand. Yeah, I'm with William. I hadn't thought about that aspect of it until just now.
So then I would ask this, Judge, that we, before the next meeting, have an ordinance, if we can, prepared that would allow us to address these things. Whether we do that with or without the city matters not to me, but I would like to at least begin putting together something that will allow us to address these extreme situations like we have at Wayne Court.
Can I add to that, Magistrate Elkins, that we should also look into anything that might be quicker than an ordinance, because obviously an ordinance is going to take 2 readings, and you're probably looking at a month at least. And if it's a different ordinance, longer than that.
You certainly may, and it may be, I think the county attorney hit on it, that past administrations have adopted and then changed and adopted and rescinded rules and regulations that or ordinances that make it very confusing and hard to find. I know that the county attorney has looked and found an ordinance and then found where it was rescinded, and it is difficult at best, but I think we should probably do something, Judge, and the quicker the better. Even, and I don't know if you can have 2 readings in the same meeting or not. I don't know if there's a rule against that, but okay. Well, anyway, whatever we can do to speed that up, I would appreciate it. Thank you, Judge. The last thing I have is I would like to extend well wishes to our Sheriff Burl Purdue and his recovery, and hope it's a speedy recovery. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Okay. See, Daniel, I think you're the one I haven't spoken with, right?
Yeah, just to kind of what Magistrate Thompson had touched on a little bit earlier in regards to the fire department. The committee did meet. This is the first meeting we've had since the committee meeting, and when the chief was there right before he resigned, and he had recommended with several others, because Chief Puckett was the highest ranking battalion chief, that he stepped in the interim position until a new chief is hired, that the committee made that vote and recommended to the judge for him to do it administratively. And then we have advertised for the police chief. It's been advertised in all the fire stations. It's been online in several different platforms that was recommended by the committee. And the application close, correct me if I'm wrong, Judge, is on Friday. Is that correct? The 14th?
14th, that sounds correct, yeah.
Yeah, and then after we get those applications, we'll spend the next week going through those applications and then set up the interviews, and then hopefully here by the the first meeting in September, Magistrate Thompson, we hope to have a new chief. Other than that, and I wish get well wishes to the sheriff and prayers for him.
Okay. County Attorney Elkins, just on the interim fire chief designation that was recommended to me by the fire committee, I just have a question. Is that something that needs to be signed off on by the fiscal court? If so, do we need to make a motion on that? Just, for the sake of doing things the right way.
I think your executive authority, Judge, in that regard is subject to fiscal court review. So yes,
okay.
Make a motion.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make a recommendation to the court that William Puckett be appointed interim chief of the fire department until such time as a permanent chief is designated.
Second.
Can I get a motion on that?
I'll make the motion, Judge, that's fine.
Okay, is there a second?
Did you not make the motion, Judge? And then
Well, I was making a recommendation. I don't know if that's a formal motion or not, so.
I'm happy to make the motion or the second, whichever you prefer, Judge.
Okay, you can make mine as a motion and you can take Travis as a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Oh, that motion will carry. Okay. Now to my comments. Of course, I want to echo what everyone has said about Burl. I know that he tends to eat salad if you've ever been to lunch with him, so he's taking care of himself right now, and he's certainly in our thoughts and prayers. And I want to just encourage everyone to keep praying for your sheriff. Regarding the treasurer search, Travis mentioned having the fiscal court review in executive session. That's neither here nor there to me. If the entire court wants to participate in that, that's fine with me. I brought it up in the committee, and I guess it was Robert who didn't really think it was necessary, but if all of you all want to do it, contact me, let me know. We'll try to find a way. Travis had mentioned maybe trying to record the interviews. That's not something I'm super comfortable with, just because, I don't really like people walking around recording each other these days, even though my nephews tend to do it a lot on their phones. But if you all are concerned with that, feel free to contact me and we'll try to work something out to make everybody happy. One thing that I'm interested in specific to what's going on with the schools and internet in general, rural internet, I've sent an email out to you all. I think I got one response, maybe two. I would like us to look into setting up a committee, and I'm going to try to find a citizen member as well to look at rural internet. If there's any citizen out there who is interested, feel free to contact my office, because I think right now would be a good time with the county schools, who obviously have a much stronger budget than us, with Kentucky Wired still having some funds available, and maybe we could be an impetus towards pushing to getting Wi-Fi or broadband of some sort out in rural areas. I would really like for us to take that up. The last note I have, I guess you could say Magistrate Davis kind of stole some of my thunder, but I do want people to, I wish that we could educate the public a little bit more on how the taxes work in Clark County. So far as your fiscal court is concerned, we have a say in obviously the fiscal court taxes, which we cut last year. Your fiscal court cut tax. There's also a section of taxes for the library, and last year I believe they cut their taxes. I make appointments to the library board. The extension actually had a small tax cut last year. I make, with approval of the fiscal court, appointments to that board based on people who they recommend. And then the health department has kept its tax rates flat and has already voted this year not to have an increase. But we have no appointments, nothing to do with the school taxes, and that is the largest portion of your tax bill. So I would echo what Magistrate Davis said. If you're concerned about your overall tax bill, whether you think there need to be more taxes or less, whichever way you feel about it, the biggest impact is going to be by contacting your school board member, attending your school board meetings, and speaking with those folks. When it comes to that particular issue, school taxes, we have the same amount of influence as any other citizen in the county, which means we basically have one vote for our school board member. So please take that to heart. I think this fiscal court is going to continue to be fiscally conservative. I can certainly say that, on all these issues, whenever you hear people argue back and forth about cutting a budget here or spending less money there, I'm a fiscal conservative. That's nothing I'm hiding from. That's nothing I'm ashamed of. And if people want to throw darts at me because I want to watch budgets closely. If people want to, attack us as a court because we want to cut taxes, that's fine. That's something they can do. It's never been a secret where myself, and I think the majority of this court stands on fiscal issues. We are, for the majority, fiscal conservatives, and I certainly am. So I guess that's all I have to say on that. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Judge, I have one quick comment before we adjourn. I was looking, I know it used to be, and it may not still be in effect, it was KRS 381.770. It had to do with abatement of nuisances. So maybe the county attorney could look that up and see. I think that's the one the city used to use when they abated nuisances, 381.770.
That was repealed. That was repealed in 2016.
Okay, well, I knew it used to be, but I wasn't sure. Thank you, William.
Yeah, that's what I was hitting on when I said the county attorney had found ordinances and then found where they were repealed and found them, and it was very confusing. So I'd like us to get something more clear out there, I think is the proper way to handle this.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, we're going to work on it, Greg.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, County Attorney. I appreciate your work on it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjourning the meeting, respond by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The meeting adjourned. I've got 11:42.
Have a good day.
Have a good day, everyone.